In this lesson, we're going to cover the basics of tables. Tables can be a bit complicated for some people. It was for me at the beginning, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. Let's get started. When creating a table, the first element that we need to create is the table element. And the table element can take a child element of TR, which stands for table row. And the table row element can take a child that is called the TD or table data element. And in here is where we would put our content. So I'm just going to type here table data. I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. Let's take a look at that. And we have table data 3 times in a single row. Now I'm going to apply a class so that it takes on a CSS style that I've provided. And let's see what that looks like. All right, here we go. We got our table with 3 table data elements in a single row. Now I'm going to duplicate the table row 3 times. Let's take a look at that. We have 3 rows, and each row has 3 TD elements. Now I'm going to duplicate this row one more time. I'm going to place it above here. And there is another element that the table row can nest, and that is the TH, which stands for table header. I'm going to replace this with header, and let's see what that looks like. Even though the browser applies some styling by default, this styling right here comes from CSS. Now, the table header element, as well as the table data element, can take an attribute that is called col_span. In other words, span this number of columns. So because I have 3 table data elements creating 3 columns on each row, and I want one of these to span across all 3 columns all the way at the top. And I'm just going to call this spanning 3 columns. And let's take a look at that. All right, here we go. We got our table header spanning 3 columns. Similar to that, we have another attribute called row span, and I'm going to apply it here. And now this is going to make this table data element span across rows. So if I wanted to span through 1, 2, 3 rows, I'm going to specify 3. And now let's see what happens. Oh, it spanned 3 rows, but now it pushed 2 items out of the 3 columns. And that is because that row span has taken a spot on this 3rd row as well as on this 4th row. So that is as if we had 4 columns on the last 2 rows. And that is precisely what we're seeing here. On the last 2 rows, we're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 columns and 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So we need to remove table elements from those other 2 columns for them to line up.